I'd like to call this meeting of the Raton City Commission to order. Could we have roll call, please, Michael Ann?
Mayor Sagata.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Schuster.
Present.
Commissioner Chatterley.
Present.
Commissioner Chavez.
Present.
Commissioner Giacomo.
Present.
Would y'all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Nice to see everybody out and about tonight. A couple of announcements. All city offices will be closed Friday, July 3rd in observance of the 4th of July. Our next regular commission meeting will be Tuesday, July 14th here in the chambers. And next up is, I believe we have a UROC award.
We do indeed.
All right.
We have a group of people,
I'll have you help.
and am I seeing everybody here? I am. Actually, would the people for the cash mob come up to the podium, please? Come on, girls.
Not everybody at once, was it?
That's right. The mayor and the city commission of Raton proudly present a certificate of recognition to the Raton Cash Mob team. Lynette Simpson, Melissa Unger, Brenda Ferry, Dean Olana, Jessica Barfield, Kayla Bradley, Brenna Simpson, Erica Ferry, and Dee Burks, in acknowledgement of being an outstanding citizens and unwavering effort to be true ambassadors of Raton. You guys have stepped up to the plate like nobody else, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes.
And then we made extras. I figured you guys could share those with Brenna and Dean, and I guess we have Dee and Jessica too, but we can get Jessica's to her.
Okay, so thank you.
We'd just like to thank you all for what you've done. You've brought some attention to our little community, and you've helped our community immensely, so thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you. It's been a labor of love, and so
We
we're
can
just so
tell,
happy.
yeah.
So,
And then
We
each
also
of you.
know
Mr.
it's
Berry?
exhausting, or is
Mayor, if I
exhausting.
could, I talked to Brenda Ferry, I think about a week ago, and she told me kind of the result of the cash mob. It was a number that was really impressive, but Brenda, I don't know if you could kind of report to us on what the cash mob has really done for local business.
To this point, we are just a little over $35,000
Wow.
on the ground.
That's great.
That
Yeah.
is great.
That's great. Tremendous
And
job.
we took last week off and we're picking up again Thursday night. And right now, we're kind of working in the county. A few places. We're going to Cimarron again Thursday night. And then after that, we'll be back in Raton. We're lining more businesses up in Raton.
Cool.
Well, you
Cool.
guys have probably saved some businesses.
Absolutely.
You guys most
Yeah.
We like
certainly
to
have.
think so.
Absolutely.
Hope so.
But,
Yeah.
I
We're
mean,
proud of you.
we're just a conduit, just a little shout out, the citizens of Raton have shown up,
Yeah.
and they put their money where their mouth is.
Mhm.
And, I mean, they talk about, we have to save small business, well, they've come every Tuesday and Thursday and spent $35,000. And so that's really,
Yeah,
that's the real heroes, really. So we've done it all together.
absolutely.
Really.
There you go.
Really.
That's been great.
We're pretty proud of it.
Absolutely should
Thank
be.
you, guys.
And don't forget to get your little U-Rock.
Oh,
paper
yeah.
rock.
Oh, yeah.
I need a heavy one. I have a lot of crap.
And there's no tossing those at Commissioner Chavez there in a minute either.
Those are awesome.
We could give Jessica hers later when we get our new order in sunflower.
Okay, so
you
you
want
want
Dean's
Erica's and I'll get Erica. Yeah, I'm gonna send Dean some stuff. So
Yeah.
I'll give this one.
All right, we have one for everyone? We do.
And if you
need
more,
more,
we're gonna get some
Thank
more.
you.
So, okay, cool.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Okay, at this time, we move on to items from citizens present. Is there anyone wishing to address the commission at this time? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to committee reports from the commissioners. Commissioner Chatterley.
Okay. The Colfax County Senior Citizens Board met May 27th and again this morning at the Raton Senior Center. With the inability to have congregate meals with COVID-19 restrictions, grab-and-go meals have been provided and they're very popular.
Yes.
Raton has seen a 23% increase in folks using this service. And they think some of it might be seniors in their 60s who are still working and can grab a quick lunch on their lunch hour that aren't able normally to come into the center. Donations for meals have also risen, which helps the budget tremendously and goes directly back into the meal program. The average donation is close to $1.75 a meal. So far, they've served 7,092 grab-and-go meals corporate-wide, with 3,358 of those in Raton since the restrictions began. The total for home-delivered meals at the end of May for the fiscal year was 68,164 corporate-wide, and 25,749 of those are in Raton. Before COVID started, they had 23,609 congregate meals corporate-wide, with about 9,784 in Raton. And also during this fiscal year, just in Raton, they've provided 3,186 hours of homemaker, 1,509 of chore, and 4,804 units of transportation. There are additional funds due to the coronavirus that are available as needed for the services, depending on how the state funds and whatnot shake out. A new vehicle was also procured for travel. It was a time for that. The board they didn't have any changes, but it was time to vote again, and they voted for Jim Zeller and David Swanson to remain as board members. They also amended the bylaws to allow a representative from Mora County to join the board, as Colfax County seniors are managing the services for them and have been for several years. Mr. Carlos, is it
Ariano.
Ariano, the Mora County clerk, was accepted today for that board position. The legislature solvency bill did not impact the capital outlay funds, which was good news. The budget had some various adjustments with the purchase of the much needed vehicle and changes in procedures and cleaning due to COVID. The new contract that they're using for food with Benny Keith has shown some savings in food costs. So the way that they reimburse for their expenses for meals had to change during COVID, so there's been a lot of just financial juggling and numbers and things like that to meet those needs and daily reporting, I believe, to turn those in. So the next fiscal year's budget that was presented was a little bit different because they aren't budgeting for the congregate meals. They're trying to budget for the grab-and-go meals, and the grab-and-go may stay when the congregate comes back. So
It's gonna be
a
interesting.
lot of things that the mayor is dealing with on that. But things are looking good at this point. The 2020-2021 budget was approved today and will be sent in for further approval. Colfax County did not reduce their funding support and is going to continue supporting the Colfax County Senior Centers with the same budget of last year, $150,000, so that was wonderful news. The board also approved the MOU with the City of Raton, which we will be considering later this evening. The next meeting is scheduled for July 21st at 10 a.m. at the Raton Senior Center, and I would like to extend an invitation on their behalf to anyone listening who's 60 or older to go over and enjoy a fabulous meal and other services at the Raton Senior Center. All you have to do is call, I think, 445-1234.
Yep.
Will that work?
That'll work.
Okay.
Or 3278, either one.
3278-1234. Okay. North Central New Mexico Economic Development District met via Zoom meeting on June 19th. There was not a quorum, so no action was taken, but we still managed to meet for 2.5 hours. Those meetings are always long. We discussed a lot of different things, and I was going to start with the Area Agency on Aging portion of North Central, because that kind of piggybacks on the Senior Center. Marcia Medina reported that their 2-year area plan that they submit to Aging and Long-Term Services Division was approved with no changes for fiscal years 21 and 22. And as many of you may know, they had a lot of problems previously with their relationship with aging and long-term, so this was wonderful. They were very positive about this relationship and feel that that they are on solid ground with that contract. They also reported that the grab-and-go meals are way up across all 3 service areas, which is about 32 counties. So people love that convenience. That's going to be something important. I think that's why they wanted to stay around. It was noted that the funding for fiscal year 21 state program was provided in a lump sum to the AAA for distribution. They're hoping that this will speed up reimbursement to providers. Global Nutrition Services was the only contractor that responded to the NSIP services, and we had some concerns about them in the past, and so they're going to be reaching out to the providers to get some feedback. And these are the people that provide menu planning, nutrition, training, education, kitchen safety, that kind of dietary guideline kind of thing. So hopefully someone will reach out to you guys. They're creating a few temporary positions in the AAA and in other hats in that organization that's going to help with disaster recovery funding, because they received $3,303,100 in CARES money, and they received $1,122,573 in Families First Coronavirus Relief Act monies. So those will be coming out to the centers as needed. As far as community development goes in that organization, Lisa Cedillo reported on a lot of different things that are going on. A couple of things that pertain to us. So the National Association of Development Organizations, or NATO, because they all have fancy acronyms here, received funding from the USDA to address rural transportation technical issues in a few sites across the country, and North Central is one of the participants. That technical assistance is related to mobility and economic development related challenges, including potential web-based workshops on mobility issues and other challenges related to substance abuse disorder. The 4 counties identified as distressed counties within North Central service area are Colfax, Rio Arriba, Taos, and Mora. Ms. Cedillo is coordinating and providing contact information for that report. So that's something that we may see impacting us. She's also working with local governments within both RTPOs, NMDOT, Transit, and Rail staff and FTA regarding questions on possible HOPE applications and planning. They gave a report on the Cimarron Sawmill project. They participated in a meeting conducted by NMEDD regarding the Cimarron Lance Forest project on May 29th. And there were a wide range on interested parties on the call, and the discussion was positive, trying to get North Central to introduce CDBG funds into the financing, because they're still short some money. So the linchpin of the whole project remains securing a $1 million plus funding from the Clearinghouse CDFI. And so they don't have anything in writing yet. That's a formal agreement, but they're discussing, and that could have a great impact in our area, in our county, and on Cimarron. They also said the Cuesta Business Park is proceeding along. Construction has begun on the site. They had some issues with possible monies being pulled back, but it looks like they're going to be able to move along. Another big project that they're working on is that Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, this CEDS, CEDS. So in mid-October, they should be coming to town and to the county with a roadshow about this. It's a really interesting way that they're doing this time. They have this group called Western Rural Development, and they have created this software that's kind of like Match.com or eHarmony for economic development. And so they gather all this data, and it's been successful in many other places. So what they do, I kind of wrote it down because it's kind of crazy. They match the needs in the county with the ideal businesses that fit the needs and use it to find out best matches. And it's like a sliding scale of desirability and compatibility with industries that get narrowed down and then eventually get into specific contacts in those industries that would be great for our county, and hopefully would create some more business recruitment and expansion.
Cool.
So, kind of cool.
Yeah.
They're also reviewing applications for the Vista position in Raton. They're working on the affordable housing plan with the county. As a whole, North Central is continuing to make great strides to clean up financials.
and prepare for the audit. We know things have been rocky in the past. Right now, I felt strongly that they're more transparent and more accountable than they've ever been. It's great to hear that. The budget committee met 4 times. That was people in the executive committee that worked on the budget. They're keeping about $91,000 in unallocated funds, just to kind of have some fluidity. Even though the executive committee approved the budget, they're gonna have to submit it to DFA with a statement about our lack of quorum, and we may have an emergency or special meeting to approve that if needed. If not, then we'll probably keep our currently scheduled meeting, which will be September 18th at 1:30. And then one last one, along with the mayor, I attended the New Mexico Municipal League Board of Directors meeting on Zoom on June 12th. We had a few new faces join the board due to district elections and municipal elections as people are leaving office. AJ 40 was unanimously confirmed as the new executive director. I think we all know he stepped into very big shoes at an incredibly difficult time. And he's done a wonderful job, and everyone's been extremely pleased with him. We spent a lot of time discussing the FY 2021 budget, and there were a lot of hard decisions there. The league built a budget that could withstand a 50% reduction in member dues, and overall it's about 25% down from the previous year. In order to avoid reduction of staff and furlough and to build up some reserves and sustain services, they're looking a couple years into the future for this. So they've done for employees that make over $60,000, they've done a sliding scale of contributing to their medical benefits, which they stated, pretty much every municipality is already doing that. So as of their members, they thought that would be a fair policy and make a few other cuts. So they made about $73,000 of cuts from payroll to help with shortfalls. The legislative update, they didn't have a lot of new information. Due to COVID, they said that advocacy for municipalities is evolving, and they'll continue to work on strategies and ideas, suggestions for revenue replacement. The board approved a request for the executive board to act with the same power as the full board until the next regular board meeting, just due to the current circumstances. And so policy committees are going to be held virtually. We didn't have a date at that time. Do you know?
No, we still don't have a date. And I know resolutions is July 18th.
Yeah, resolutions, they said would be July 18th at 10 a.m. via Zoom, so they're keeping the date, I think, the same. But the policy committees are going to be somehow staggered virtually. And then annual conference is going to still be September 1st through 4th. It'll be through Zoom. And at that time will be our next board meeting, and that's all I had from that.
Alrighty, thank you. Commissioner Giacomo.
There was no R.T. Johnson Memorial Library Board meeting held in May 2020. The Raton Public Service Company Board of Directors meeting was held on May 27th, 2020, 5 p.m. Financial and statistical information was discussed and reported and approved by the board members. Raton Public Service General Manager Cindy Chavez reviewed with the board the Twin Eagle Resources legal proceedings. She also reported that 157 new meters have been installed as of this date, and a total of 934 new meters are in service. Assistant RPS Manager Dave Benzino reported work being done around the city by his crew members. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Chavez.
I do. The Raton Water Board met on the 16th. Mayor Pro Tem Schuster and myself were both in attendance, and Lake Maloya is currently 3 feet below the spillway. A small amount of moisture is trickling in, and we're operating mainly off of the Cimarron system. We heard an estimate cost of the 3rd Street project, which is going to come in around $636,000. The Waterworks project report was the hospital lift station is done and operating in great order. The filter plant is 99% finished, complete, and we'll be having some inspection tours at a later date. And all of the city storage tanks were inspected and passed the inspection. We did have a closed session and went into closed session. And then we heard and approved the financials for May. Do you have anything to add?
I do indeed.
Masks.
During the closed session, we discussed Mr. Sykes' performance, and we agreed that he is able and to take on the full position of Mr. Dan Campbell's, even though those were big shoes to fill. He is doing a good job of filling those. So after the session, we did vote to approve his raise. That's all I have on the water board. Do you have
The
other?
financial advisory met and we approved the current budget for presentation to the city commission this evening. That's all I have.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chavez. Mayor Pro Tem.
All right. On June 15th, the Center for Community Innovation did meet via phone conference. It was announced that the visitor center, which they are now managing, is open from 10 to 2 with plexiglass courtesy screens in place to keep staff safe. There are no current volunteers at this time. It's staff only who are working those hours. A new digital version of the relocation guide will be ready soon to respond to the increased interest in relocations to this area. A new food business is ready to start using the Cole Camp Community Kitchen, or the Cole Camp Kitchen, to help their drive-through that is in the little building that is next to the Crystal. So something to look forward to. The Center for Community Innovation won a $10,000 grant from the All Together New Mexico and is working on a Blue Apron style food delivery pilot project to assist with needy senior citizens who are able to basically cook their own meals but need that little bit of assistance. Recruiting for a new Vista volunteer to help with economic development is happening, and Grow Raton will be renting space at the visitor center starting July 1 for their new staff person. The Housing Authority Board met today, a regular meeting. However, it was quite lengthy, filled with all kinds of end-of-year activity. They were able, during that, they approved their financial report for the month of May. They approved their financial statement for the month of May. They also approved the summer food program financial statement for the month of May and the monthly NRPA grant financial statement for May 2020. And they reviewed the investment register. They will be meeting on the 29th of this month to approve the final 2020 budget before it's submitted. Other business, Resolution 567, the tenant bad debt write-offs were approved. Also, Resolution 568, which fixed asset write-offs for 2019 and 2020 was approved. An award to the audit contract for Beasley Mitchell and Company, LLP, was approved. The National Regional Housing Authority resolution that was reviewed, and Resolution 569, Raton Housing Authority giving jurisdiction to the Northern Regional Housing Authority to operate within the city limits. They approved during their last meeting to function in the county of Colfax County, but they had to also approve within the city limits. They discussed the Las Vegas Housing Authority. They met in closed session regarding personnel issues, which I am not privy to. Housing, after the closed session, they opened back up and approved Resolution 570 to adopt the operating budget for fiscal year beginning 7/1/2020, and review of revisions to Housing Authority personnel policy were discussed. Resolution 571 was adopted with revisions to Housing Authority personnel policy. That was today. It went from noon till about 1:40. And I believe that's all I have.
Alrighty, thank you. As for myself, continue to meet with the Mayor's Caucus weekly. We took last week off, as well as with the Governor's Special Task Force involving COVID. Nothing really earth-shattering coming out of those meetings lately. We are scheduled to meet again this week and discuss plans as the state continues to open up. As you know, states around us are seeing spikes. New Mexico is pretty much held steady at the moment, but there are some concerns, so they want to talk about that. And that's all I'm going to report this evening. So moving on to the action items. Item 6A, approval of the June 9th, 2020 regular commission meeting minutes. I believe you all have had a chance to go over them.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as written.
If I could, we did mention there was one correction that we made. It was under the items from citizens present. It was just a misspelling on the word "sell."
Yep.
And then I also, the adjournment time should be 7:08 PM.
Okay.
So that correction was made. So if you could approve as amended.
We can do that.
I change my motion to as amended.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt the minutes as amended. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, deliberate and act on request for zoning change application submitted by William and Carla Serrazio to change from C4 Rural Commercial District to HI Heavy Industrial for a tract of land described as Section 2, Township 30 North, Range 23 East, in MPM, consisting of 10.33 acres, more or less. Mr. Berry.
Mayor and Commission, this is an item that we talked about at the City Commission before, and I will kind of review for you where we're at on this. First of all, I would like to pass out a letter that was submitted to me today from an area resident. This is from Larry Rea, and he talks about his take on the rezoning application. And to summarize that, Mr. Rea is against any rezoning of the property. So I'll pass this around to you. Mr. Rea called me today, submitted the letter. He was unable to attend the meeting, and I did tell him that I would pass along to you that he stands in opposition of the rezoning. He states his reasons in the letter, and so I can answer any questions in regard to that. But I'll kind of start at the beginning here. The tract of property that we're talking about is a little larger than 10 acres. It's located north of State Highway 555, typically called the York Canyon Mine Road, and then immediately east of the railroad right-of-way, the BNSF line. It's also generally described as being in the southwest corner of the La Mesa Park property. This is a 10-acre piece that was parceled off sometime previously, and the applicant is Bill Serrazio. Now, I also talked to Mr. Serrazio today, and he also was unable to attend the meeting, but this item has had 2 public hearings at Planning and Zoning previously. They were well-attended meetings. Generally, Mr. Serrazio was requesting that the zoning change from a C4 commercial zone to HI heavy industrial, and there was a fair number of opponents to that included other property owners or residents of the area. Planning and Zoning did meet on this a number of times. Ultimately, Planning and Zoning formulated a recommendation to the City Commission to rezone the tract to LI Light Industrial. So you have the recommendation from Planning and Zoning in your packet. I believe that stemmed from their January 16th meeting, and then in February, we met in regard to this at the City Commission. We held a public hearing, which also had a number of people stand up and address the commission, if you have that. Now, in your packet, in addition to the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission, you have other documents that you received back then in February, including the request for zoning change. I believe there was a petition from property owners or residents of the area. We have a map generally describing this area, and the map shows ownership, it shows current zoning. And the thing I would say about heavy industrial is that would be contiguous with an existing heavy industrial zone that lies south of Highway 555. The light industrial designation would consist of more of a spot zone, since one parcel would be rezoned from C4, a larger C4 area, to LI. So I think we talked about a little bit of a concern of creating a spot zone with that recommendation. And again, the HI would be contiguous, so that would not be a spot zone concern. We did not take action at our February meeting, and soon after we got caught up into the COVID issue, and so some time has passed since we've talked about this issue, and tonight is the night that we would bring that back up. Now, on the agenda, we have a couple of things, and as you had stated, Mayor, we, in spite of the fact that Planning and Zoning had recommended rezoning to a light industrial, we have listed the agenda item as consideration of a change from C4 Rural Commercial District to HI Heavy Industrial, and that is because the application of Mr. Serrazio has not been amended, revised, changed, or replaced. I think that generally what Mr. Serrazio has expressed to me is that his original purpose for the heavy industrial zoning would have involved construction activities that required an air quality permit, and he subsequently found out that due to the proximity to residents, that's not going to be practical to obtain that permit. And so I think that Mr. Serrazio generally agrees with the light industrial use. However, you have an application to rezone to heavy industrial. The city clerk and I talked about that. That's what's listed on this item to deliberate and act. You'll see on the next item, there is a resolution in regard to proposed rezoning. And I would tell you that ultimately the choice of the commission, or the options to the commission, would be you can rezone the tract to heavy industrial. You can rezone the tract to light industrial, even though that's not really the request. As the city commission, you are the ultimate authority in town on land use, and you could take that action, or you can deny the request and the property would remain zone C4. Now, something that we talked about back then was what the allowable use in a C4 district consists of according to the ordinance. What the ordinance states, and I'll paraphrase this, is you can have any use that's allowed in a C3 commercial zone plus animal related uses. I think it specifically mentions a horse race track, rodeo grounds, or riding stables, things related to equestrian type of business. And so the C4 zone was created because that was the previous use of the property, the La Mesa Park property in whole, not just the 10 acres, but the larger surrounding piece. So then if you refer to the allowable land use in a C3 commercial zone, it states that you can do anything that's commercial plus most light industrial activities, and there are listed a couple of exceptions that you can't do in a C3 zone. But generally any light industrial would be allowed in a C3, and by reference it would also be allowed in a C4. So my recommendation to you is We would probably not change this to heavy industrial. That would create the spot zone and also not really accomplish the purpose of the applicant. And you can do light industrial uses on the property now, so rezoning to light industrial is really not necessary. My recommendation is to deny the application and maintain the C4 zoning. Something else I would report to the commission is currently in our comprehensive plan, the area is shown as something that would develop with commercial along 2nd Street or 555. That would be a commercial-oriented area, and then probably residential, which would be the highest and best land use of and I'm again talking about the larger La Mesa Park area, not limited to the 10 acres. However, we would look at the conflict between residential, commercial, and industrial uses, something we would want to avoid. And so I think that that would also show up in our update to the comprehensive plan. That's something that we talked about in the last week with consensus planning, and we would anticipate that would be one of the select areas that we would look at for residential development. And so my recommendation to you, for what that is worth, is that we would maintain the C4 zoning. And so I will hold up there, Mayor, answer any questions that you might have, or stand by for your discussion of the item.
All righty, thank you, Mr. Berry. As Mr. Berry pointed out, it kind of makes sense to me just to leave it as it is. In reading Mr. Reyes' new letter, he is fine with leaving it currently at C4. It sounds like Mr. Serrazio is on board. I would concur with Mr. Berry's conclusion, but that's just one vote. Any other discussions, questions?
Well, I did some little researching back on this, on the C4. And with the C4, they could still have the original heavy equipment and repair station that was originally cited for. Also, we had 85 that I counted citizens that protested this.
Yep.
And personally, I agree that we should leave it just as it is, the comprehensive plan. I went back over that, and that takes it down. We've had correspondence from the people that own the racetrack that are still trying to get something there in the form of a casino type thing. So I too would agree that we just leave it as C4 and disavow this at this time.
I agree with everything that's been said, and I think usually when we do rezone, it's for a higher and better use. We usually don't zone down, we zone up, so.
I follow suit to say deny.
Now, Mayor and Commission, we have met the requirement for the public hearing at the City Commission. That's required by ordinance. We did do that in February, so this is not listed as a public hearing. However, I think if an interested party cared to address the commission, we certainly would take that input. I did pass along a couple of personal conversations that I had today in regard to this. However, I'm not sure that there wouldn't be other people present tonight that would want to comment on that, and certainly would not want to deny them the opportunity. But we have met, it's not listed as a public hearing, we have met that requirement, but I'll step down.
All righty, thank you. Is there anyone wishing to address this item? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to deny item B, the request for zoning change application submitted by William and Carla Serrazio to change from C4 rural commercial to H1 heavy industrial for a tract of land described as Section 2, Township 30 North, Range 23 East, in MPM consisting of 10.33 acres more or less, and to also, in that same motion, table the next item, C, the resolution 2020-09.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to deny the request for the zoning change as well as to table item C. Is there any further discussion? Michael Ann, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Chatterley,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Schuster,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Commissioner Giacomo,
Yes.
Mayor Sagata.
Yes. Thank you. So then moving on to item D, public hearing, fiscal year 21 City of Raton budget. Mr. Berry.
Mayor and Commission, This is something that we talked about a couple of meetings ago, or we've talked about over several meetings. And we told you then that we are more or less operating on the old budget, and that's what's submitted to Department of Finance Administration as our interim budget measure, with a couple of adjustments that were necessary for newly created funds, lines, or items like our community development block grant. So with some modifications, however, not a lot of changes or work on that, and we still will have some work cut out for us in the final budget, and then as we go through the budget year, due to the unusual nature of the COVID-19 effect. And so we do need to hold a public hearing in preparation of the final budget. That's what we're holding here tonight. We're conducting this, and as we stated, the revenue picture pretty cloudy because we had shutdown of business. There's really a 2-month lag on when we see gross receipts tax. That's the biggest revenue impact that we have in the budget. Other things are a little more stable. However, we haven't seen the clear picture. We're getting a little more information, and we'll talk about that when we get into the financial report. And generally what I would say on that is that the impact from business shutdown I think has not been as severe as we feared. However, we see some shortfalls in there, and we'll have to make some decisions. So I'll hold up there. Certainly our treasurer, Michael Ann Antonucci, is available to answer any questions in regard to the process, what's included in the interim budget, or questions we may have in regard to the final budget process. And I stand for questions. We do have a public hearing, so I will step down, Mayor.
All right, thank you. As Mr. Berry stated, this is a public hearing for fiscal year 21 Raton City budget. Is there anyone wishing to address this at this time? Any one of my commissioners have any questions or comments for Michael Ann or Mr. Berry?
I have a comment.
Okay.
The constituents and our populace need to know that what a tremendous job Mr. Berry, the city office, has been doing. Mrs. Antonucci, they have been working. When most of the cities in New Mexico are suffering from this shutdown, we have held our own. And so they've been very frugal in what they're doing with our thing, and I think they should be commended. I really do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's all I have to say.
I totally agree.
All right, any other comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to item E. Deliberate and act on biennial memorandum of understanding between the City of Raton and New Mexico Mainstreet. Chris?
I'll kind of kick things off.
Okay, Mr. Berry.
Madam President, Raton Mainstreet is one of our really truly important partnerships. They have been in the 6 years that I've been around the city, and we've shown tangible progress in the Main Street area. And so, I would express my wholehearted support for Raton Main Street in your deliberations on this item. And I think they always have something to report to the commission, and so I'll step aside and let the president report on that.
Thank you.
Get all set up here. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Commissioners, and everyone. I'm Christine Valentini, President of Raton Main Street. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce some of our Main Street board members who are also present. I'd like to introduce our Secretary, Melissa Getch Medina, Serena Lannon, Linda Headley. Also, two of our newest board members, I'd like to introduce Lynette Simpson and Melissa Unger. Of course, our Executive Director, Brenda Ferry. This is what having a strong, nationally accredited and state accredited Main Street organization means for our community. You have in your packets a 2019 annual service delivery report program, and there goes my mask. I received this from New Mexico Mainstreet at our winter conference this past February. And for our listening audience, I'd like to just highlight that we received from New Mexico Mainstreet a market value of services in the amount of $838,805 for the year 2019. The biggest award was the grant written by our Executive Director Brenda Ferry and Public Works Director Jason Phillips for $800,000 to finish the Great Blocks project. Some of the other areas I'd like to review are the technical assistance that we received from, or that we requested and received from New Mexico Mainstreet in all areas of our four-point approach. They are in the economic vitality, organization, promotion, and one of the biggest there is for design this past year. And that we had development of renderings for facade improvements to 3 historic buildings, including recommendations on painting, signage, lighting, all of that's mentioned. This technical assistance with an administration and implementation of the New Mexico Gas Company grant-funded project. As you know, we received last year $5,000 from the New Mexico Gas Company grant so that we could help 3 historical businesses, buildings, renovate their facade. And we did accomplish just that this past year. So we're quite proud of that. So once again, and just everything that's listed there, New Mexico Mainstreet is important to us. And of course, Raton Mainstreet is important to Raton. I'd also like to report that our board now consists of 10 innovative, motivated individuals. They are, besides who I have already mentioned here tonight, are our treasurer, Patricia Romero, our vice president, Devin Barton, Rebecca Sacalarias, and Robert Jones. We are all committed and will continue to strive to support our hardworking executive director, Brenda Ferry. Earlier this year at our retreat, we had decided that we wanted to do more in the economic vitality component of our four-point approach. We had a plan, and then the pandemic hit. We then realized several of our small businesses would be shut down and impacted in a negative manner. Since the last thing we wanted was to see our small businesses shut down for good, we created a business sustainability and recovery micro grant program. Once again, Brenda wrote a grant and we were awarded $7,000 from the New Mexico Resiliency Alliance. She also wrote letters and we received donations from the Sloan Prince Foundation and the Farmers Insurance. She set up a charity donation GoFundMe account on Facebook, and we received donations from various donors to a total of $5,000. When we reached that goal, InBank matched that donation with an additional $5,000. Donations continue to be raised through the hard work and reaching out from all of our board members. To date, we have helped 21 businesses in Raton, issuing a total of $16,500. We will continue with this program, making adjustments as needed. As you can see, our executive director is essential to our Raton Mainstreet Arts and Cultural District organization and essential for Raton. We ask for your continued support and approval of the resolution for financial support. We also request your approval of the biennial memorandum of understanding between New Mexico Mainstreet, Raton Mainstreet Arts and Cultural Organization, and the City of Raton. I assure you that our Raton Mainstreet Arts and Cultural Organization agrees to abide by the eligibility and participation requirements as set forth. Our mission: we are committed members of the community dedicated to improving the quality of life in Raton by revitalizing our downtown area. We want to foster business prosperity and offer new economic opportunities. We seek to have a community where all generations can have a sense of pride in Raton and all cultures feel respect for our heritage. Thank you. Any questions?
Great job, Chris. Oh,
Yeah,
go
I
ahead.
just want to commend you for the work you guys do. You are essential to the vitality of Raton, and we appreciate it a great deal. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just echo that, Chris. And what I like so much about your organization is you guys don't let the fact that you may not have the funds stop you from anything. You go out and you find it. You write grants. You GoFundMe page. That's awesome. Some of our other organizations in town need to learn from your values in that and really look to help themselves out instead of always wanting someone to help them out. So I appreciate everything you guys have done.
Thank you. So I will move to approve the biennial memorandum of understanding between the City of Raton and New Mexico Mainstreet. And can we combine in item F, approve resolution 2020-28, approving support to Raton Mainstreet, previously postponed on 5/12/2020.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the memorandum of understanding between the City of Raton and New Mexico Mainstreet, and also to approve resolution 2020-28 supporting Raton Mainstreet that was previously postponed. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Good job, guys.
You guys realize that since you came, you have to stay here till the end of the meeting? No? Bye.
There's chocolate at the end.
Sure,
Sure, yeah.
absolutely.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, take some masks.
Raton masks.
All right, item G, deliberate and act a memorandum of understanding between the City of Raton, Colfax County Senior Citizens, Inc. I will be abstaining from this. Madam Mayor Pro Tem, you have the gavel. If you want it.
Alrighty.
And I believe we do have someone here from the center to present.
All right, very good.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners. I'm Monica Finkbone. I'm the Program Manager at the Colfax County Senior Citizens Center. And I wanted to thank you for the opportunity to represent our MOU to you this evening. And I believe it's in the packet.
It is.
Our annual agreement with the city to operate the senior center in Raton. Annually, we serve 40,000 meals and provide 5,000 hours of home services. You can see Exhibit A on page 3 is the estimated cost to perform these duties. This is the estimates for the next year. So I just wanted to say we appreciate your support. Do you have any questions? Hopefully I can answer them.
Are there any questions for, I'm sorry, Monica, what's your last name again?
Finkbone.
Finkbone.
Yes, Finkbone.
I do understand that you are a vital employee at that operation, and thank you for your hard work.
Oh, thank you.
I think this is a great deal. I think a wonderful partnership. They provide a lot of services for our community and our seniors, and you can look at the dollar value there, the things that they provide. It's pretty impressive, and that's probably the only thing I look forward to in aging is being a part of it after learning a little bit on the board. It's pretty cool, so appreciate that.
All right, does anyone want to make the motion to approve?
So move.
Second?
Again, we have a motion and a second to approve the memorandum of understanding between the City of Raton and the Colfax County Senior Citizens, Inc. All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And I'll turn the meeting back over to you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Monica.
Thank you.
Item H, deliberate and act on annual contract between the City of Raton and Envision IT Services. Mr. Berry.
Mayor and Commission, Some years back, the city had an IT committee here, consisted of staff from different departments, and we were actively engaged in the evaluation of our IT system here, and I think we had a mutual concern over data that we stored and the security of that data. And one of the steps that we took was we enlisted the services of New Mexico Tech. They have a cybersecurity program there, and they sent students of that program to Raton, and for no cost did an analysis of our system. And that was an in-depth analysis. They spent time on the site. They looked at everything here. They did a social engineering experiment with employees. It was kind of fun. And they provided us a report. And they really provided those services to us to get their students experience, and because they have that knowledge, and it was very helpful to the city of Raton. And of course they identified a lot of weakness that the city of Raton had in our system in storing our data. And so since that time, we've taken measures that were recommended in the report to try to upgrade that and provide security. We have that responsibility to ratepayers, to ambulance users, to really the whole community where we have some kind of data. And I'm proud to say that we have essentially completed all of the upgrades, and it hasn't been cheap. It's been something that has a one-time cost in upgrading hardware primarily, some software, but we also have this maintenance component that we're talking about under this contract. And so we've made that investment. I sleep a lot better at night. You can never say that you're safe and secure. It's an ongoing issue, but I think we're in a lot better shape than we were 3 or 4 years ago. Now, and in regard to the contract that you have in front of you from Envision IT Solutions, we have dealt with them now for some time, and I can tell you that they have given us A1 service. Again, this is not an inexpensive contract or service, and you never get done with it. You're always protecting yourself. Things change on a daily basis, as you know, in this game, and we will continue to do that. Now, I would mention that our city clerk has really taken a leadership role in the security of our IT systems. RPS has staff that's taken a leadership role, Waterworks, in most departments as well. We have some systems that are off-site where we have people that have really stepped that up. But I think overall this contract is managed by Michael Ann, and she's done an excellent job there as a great understanding, far better than me, of what is involved in this. But I would mention 2 things. Envision has really done a good job for us, and I would hope to keep that relationship going. And then number 2, we have a pretty strong team here at the City of Raton that works on this continuously as well. So I'm sure Michael Ann will answer any questions or have some comments for you. You have my recommendation in regard to the maintenance contract that you have in front of you.
I just want to mention that this particular contract is only for the City of Raton, Raton Waterworks, and RPS. So this includes our services to provide technical service to our workstations, as well as we have the Office 365, which we're currently using. And then we also have this data backup, which is our cloud storage. And as the city manager said, it's not cheap. I mean, that by itself is $600 a month. But we are pretty confident that our system is far more secure than it was a year ago. So this is one contract. We will have future contracts that will expire for the fire department, which is a separate contract that was probably done in October. And then most recently, I'd say maybe February, March, the police department upgraded their servers and is now on a contract as well, but those are separate contracts. I'm not sure, we will work with Envision to possibly evaluate the needs of other departments, but for right now, those are the only departments covered under any sort of a technical assistance contract.
Alrighty. Any questions or comments?
I'll make a motion to approve annual contract with the city of Raton Envision IT services.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the contract between the City of Raton and Envision IT Services. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item I, deliberate and act on Engineering Analytics, Inc. task order for construction management and materials testing services for the Solid Waste Convenience Center project. Mr. Berry.
Mayor Commission, I can report to you that the construction for the Solid Waste Convenience Center has started. We have broken ground. This is located on East Hereford Avenue, across the street from the Water Department warehouse, and we started about a week ago with earthwork on that project. We would expect construction of the project to run through about March 1st of 2021. We do have pretty much a local team that's building it. I was pretty pleased over that. And I bring this task order to you in regard to construction management and materials testing services that we would anticipate will be provided by Engineering Analytics, the Raton office here. They have established a materials testing lab in Raton. They've done an excellent job for us on construction management of various projects over the last 5 years. Ranging from reconstruction of spillway at Lake Dorothy Dam to street projects and water line projects. And so they're experienced and knowledgeable of construction management, art processes here, and they have the testing lab available to go. I had provided design engineering for this project, wearing the 2 hats. We got that through the bid process and through the start of construction, and now I would assign primarily the daily inspection to Engineering Analytics through the term. Myself and Jason Phillips will make periodic inspections, attend weekly meetings, keep very engaged with the project, but we will need these services, and we need them fairly quickly because we are doing dirt work. And I really hope you approve this because we sampled some soil and we're running some soil tests now. So I have my recommendation for approval.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Berry. Is there any comments or questions for Mr. Berry?
I'll make a motion to approve the engineering analytics task order for construction management and materials testing services for the Solid Waste Convenience Center project.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the task order for the Solid Waste Convenience Center project. Is there any further discussion?
Mayor, if I could throw one other thing in, the financial piece. The construction cost of the project is a little north of $560,000. And then the proposal that you have in front of you here, and it's we've got some estimates of testing and hours and quantities, but we have a not to exceed cost of $73,500 for professional services.
All right, thank you.
Plus gross receipts.
We can put this off
Plus
for
the
a few months?
GRT.
Is that including GRT or excluding?
Excluding, so we would have to
Excluding
include
Mr. Berry, we can't put this off for a few months? No, just,
You know, I figured we've talked about this for about 4 years, and you might want to see it going, so.
agree with you.
Since he has provided some of the design work, I think we can let him slide on a few soil tests.
Sometimes the wheels of government turn a little slower than we would like.
So we have a motion and a second before us. Any other discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item J, deliberate and act on Raton Multimodal Transportation Center Electric Vehicle Charging Project, number NM-VW-20-01, project agreement between the City of Raton and the New Mexico Environment Department. Mr. Berry.
Mayor and Commission, remember us talking about some months back, an application for Volkswagen Mitigation Trust funding in the 2020 cycle, excuse me. This funding has been decided through some litigation with this corporation, Volkswagen. There were portions of the settlement assigned to many of the states or all of the states. This particular funding went through the New Mexico Environment Department, and the intent of the settlement funds is to generally improve air quality. We had submitted an application for electric vehicle charging stations. There is one commercial station located in town now, but generally for travelers that would travel that way, this would be a convenience for them. And we propose to construct this in the area of the multimodal facility or the rail depot. And so we were successful in our application. Turning to the grant agreement. The award to Raton authorizes the reimbursement of 77% of the project, but not to exceed $17,005. And then there are the remaining 23% would be a cash contribution from the City of Raton. So I believe that's in excess of about $5,000. And so with your consideration of this, we would get the approval of the Environment Department to proceed and proceed on into construction.
All righty, any questions or comments for Mr. Berry? This is for 2 stations, correct, Scott?
Yes.
And I believe there's like different levels of those charging stations, and we're planning kind of the mid-level, is that
That's
correct?
correct, Commissioner, Mayor Pro Tem. We would plan the mid-level, and generally the levels indicate kind of the speed in which you can charge your vehicle. We're at the mid-level. The highest level is much more expensive, and so we're going this mid-level. I would say that RPS will help out with some in-kind contribution to the project as well. So they have participated in the preparation of this. I would also acknowledge the Center for Community Innovation, and specifically Jeff Peterson, in putting the application together, doing the footwork on this, doing all the hard things. Jeff primarily did all of the work. I assembled it and submitted it on behalf of the City of Raton, but a lot of this is due to Jeff's efforts.
Cool.
I really like that this adds value to the Heritage Park, great blocks, multimodal, all that area down there. And is there an estimate on when this would be complete or when it would start?
I think that is largely has to do with procurement and delivery of equipment. And because a lot of production has been shut down recently, we're finding that delivery is unpredictable. So anything I gave you would be really a guess at this point, and I will do a little more homework on that and report back to you at the next commission meeting. But I think we're kind of open-ended on it. I would state that the goal is to move quickly on this and construct this during the summer of 2020.
Well, I will move to approve the Raton Multimodal Transportation Center Electrical Vehicle Charging Project, NMVW 20-01, project agreement between the City of Raton and New Mexico Environment Department.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second to accept the agreement between the City of Raton and the New Mexico Environment Department regarding the charging project. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item K, deliberate and act on Resolution 2020-43, accepting the CARES Act grant offer, grant number 3-35-0033, 2020 for the Raton Municipal Cruise Field Airport and authorizing city manager authority to act as sponsors authorized representative. Mr. Berry.
Mayor and Commission, under CARES legislation from the U.S. Congress, there was an allocation to Federal Aviation Administration to support aviation, an acknowledgement that aviation was highly affected by the COVID shutdown, and that included airports from general aviation to international facilities. And so Raton was notified that an allocation of $30,000 had been awarded to Raton Municipal Airport. I have worked with Federal Aviation Administration on what we could use that funding for, and I was informed that we could use it for a improvement project to the airport, but we also had the option of using it for operation and maintenance activities, such as offsetting utility costs, because activities were really shut down, but yet fixed costs continued. And so what we bring to you is something we've worked on with FAA, where the city of Raton would receive $30,000. We would use that to offset operational costs such as electricity costs. Now, we're not on Raton Public Service Company there. We are on another provider. We pay a bill for electricity, and so this would reimburse the city for some time of that utility, plus other things like natural gas. And so that's the nuts and bolts of the agreement that you have in your packet. As stated in the item, we would also ask for your concurrence with allowing the city manager to be the signatory authority for this effort in regard to signing documents with Federal Aviation Administration. FAA had advised me that they would like to push out the funds very rapidly. You do see that July 2nd date on this. We have worked with them up to this point, and we would turn around on this immediately, but their goal is to get these funds implemented, get them to work, and do that as rapidly as possible. So we would look at a pretty quick turnaround on this. Basically just transfer of funds to Raton, and then we would use those funds for these payments as we go.
All right. Any questions or comments?
I'll make a motion to accept resolution 2020-43.
We have a motion and a second to accept, to approve, adopt resolution 2020-43, basically authorizing Mr. Berry to be our representative on the FFA agreement. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item L, deliberate and act on resolution 2020-44, the USDA Water and Waste System Grant Agreement. Mr. Berry.
Seems like Mayor and Commission, we talked about USDA agreements regarding our filter plant renovation about every meeting over the last 12 or 18 months. And we have another item for you in regard to that. So the Commissioner did report that construction is 99.9% completed. We are treating water with the new components. Really, we're done with the project. And what you have here is a grant agreement through the Rural Utility Service of the USDA. Something we've talked about for a long time now is, as a part of the deal we made with USDA, we would borrow about $1.7 million, $1.754 million to be exact, and then we would receive grant funds in the amount of $829,000, which you see detailed in this grant agreement. So we have completed the project. A lot of the funds have been paid out. We went through the process of the interim funding and then the final piece of the financing and now the grant agreement. And so we hope to be getting to the end of the process here and turn our attention to other projects. But this is the fun part. This is the free money part.
Cool.
I did just want to report to the commission, we did previously approve this in 2018. I think we initially brought it to you before and then we were told it wasn't needed. Well, now the loan closing is tomorrow and they're saying we need it. So we went ahead and put it on tonight's agenda just to get it done so that we can dot our i's, cross our t's, and close this loan tomorrow. So with the closing of the loan, the funds will be wired to our account. Raton Waterworks, pending receipt of these grant funds, has pretty much had to front those monies. So we're anxiously awaiting the $829,000 in grant funds. And then the remainder of the bond funds, we will have to pay off the interim loan with CoBank. So we'll be working on that. I did want to just mention that I think we talked about this previously. The interest rate has gone down since we started this process. Initially it was at 2% and it's now at 1.375%. So that's a really good rate and will save us a lot of money in the future. So,
Absolutely.
That's great.
so we were pretty happy about that.
Cool.
Make a motion to approve resolution 2020-44, USDA water and wastewater agreement.
Just second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt resolution 2020-44 for the USDA Water and Waste System Grant Agreement. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item N, deliberate and act on RFP award for District Youth Services fiscal year 21 through 24, subcontract for Girls Circle and Boys Council program. Mr. Berry or Michael Ann?
Yes, me.
All right.
Mayor and Commission, in your packet is a memo that I prepared, just kind of outlining the process that we followed, same as in previous years. We were awarded funding again. At the previous meeting, we approved the grant agreement with CYFD, and it is a 4-year agreement this time. The funding has been reduced, as we discussed. But in anticipation of receiving the funding, we did go ahead and publish our RFPs for the direct use services for the Girls Circle and Boys Council. We did only receive one response to that RFP, and it is our current provider, who is HRDA, and has been providing those services for a few years now. Prior to that, I believe it was via Del Sol. So we are making a recommendation this evening to award the subcontract to HRDA. It would be for the 4 years, but renewable annually. And the sub-agreement kind of outlines the amount that they would receive annually. This is required, once we approve it this evening, then I have to submit it to CYFD with a request for them to approve this. And then once we have their final approval, then we could move forward. Hopefully, July 1 is next week, so I'm going to send this off tomorrow and see if we can't turn it around quickly, because we do anticipate that services could start July 1. I'm not sure if we will run into any delays with the state. Obviously, it's been kind of slow this year getting agreements approved, and but HRDA could start as soon as we get that approval from CYFD.
Okay. Any comments or questions?
I will move to approve the RFP award for Direct Youth Services FY 2021 through 2024 subcontract for Girls Circle and Boys Council program.
I'll second.
A motion and a second to approve the RFP award for the Direct Youth Services for fiscal year 21 through 24. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item N, deliberate and act on RFP award for fiscal year 21 through 24, direct youth services subcontract for restorative justice program. Michael Ann?
Mayor and Commission, a similar RFP was advertised for the direct youth services for the restorative justice program. We also did receive only one response to that RFP, and it is the current provider, Peace Through Education. That's Emma Green. And I failed to mention on the last action item, we did have a committee, even though we only received one proposal, we still had a committee of Continuum Advisory Board members review both of these proposals. So, they both were responsive and met the elements required in the RFP. So we are recommending approval also of this subcontract, which would also be submitted to CYFD for approval.
Alrighty, thank you. Any comments or questions for Michael Ann?
I'll make a motion to approve RFP award for fiscal year 21-24 direct youth services subcontract for restorative justice program.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the award for the RFP for fiscal year 21-24 direct youth services subcontract for restorative justice program. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item O, deliberate and act on resolution 2020-45, approval of the fiscal year 20 May financial report. Michael Ann.
Mayor and Commission, we present to you this evening our financial report, which is reconciled as of May 31st. You'll see that in the general fund, our available cash, less our 1/12 reserve, is $2,908,467. I've also listed for you the ending cash balances in our other funds. We did receive the June gross receipts tax distribution last week. We were kind of anxiously awaiting this and very fearful because of the shutdowns of our businesses for the month of March. This distribution does represent the March sales. So you'll see that, and as Mr. Berry mentioned earlier, it wasn't quite as bad as we had anticipated. And I think part of the reason for that is, we had several of our large stores stayed operational during this whole time, and I think they also saw an increase in sales, which was good, and I think that helped make up for some of the shortfalls that we anticipated with some of our other businesses that have been closed. I think that the next 2 to 3 months, we still need to monitor this very closely because this particular report had some adjustments, but it was on the medical side. As you know, we're held harmless on food and medical. And so we have reached out. The same manager did send an email off to Tax and Rev today to see if they could provide some sort of an explanation for that. I think it was just a little over $50,000. So hopefully we can get some more information on that. But otherwise it was a good distribution. So because of this distribution, we will end the fiscal year meeting our budget projections, and we're just slightly above the budget projection by 0.42%. Let's see. We do have several construction projects that we've discussed time and time again that will be ongoing this summer, and that's also going to help us offset any declines as a result of the COVID health emergency. We're not real sure what the effect is going to be on travelers, if we're going to see a reduction in travel. I mean, if you look at the highway right now, it doesn't seem that way. People are traveling. I know the Visitors Center has had an influx of visitors in the past week. So we're kind of somewhat optimistic maybe, but we'll have to kind of see how our lodgers tax, that's a good indication, is the lodgers tax report. So we'll be looking at that closely. And then also this year, we were fortunate to have received an increased amount in small cities assistance, and that also helped offset potential declines. So the interim budget was submitted to DFA, and in the meantime, we are working on the final budget, which will be due July 31st. So we'll probably hold an additional public hearing at the first meeting in July. We still have yet to meet with our department heads, but we kind of want to close out the fiscal year, catch our breath a little bit, and kind of then shift to the final budget so that we can meet those deadlines.
Alrighty, thank you. Any questions or comments for Michael Ann?
I just have a clarification.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
So this reflects March or April, the distribution in June?
Oh, you're correct. It is April.
Okay.
Yes. I misspoke. I did
just
say
wanted to make
March.
sure that I had it right.
Yeah, there's a 2-month lag, so
Okay.
it would be for the month of April, which, you know, March was kind of a partial shutdown, really, because I think a lot of businesses didn't shut down
Right.
till probably mid-month. But for the month of April, a
We were
lot of
down.
businesses were
Yeah.
closed the entire month.
Yep. Any other comments?
Make a motion to approve resolution 2020-45, approval of FY 20 May financial report.
I'll second.
A motion and a second to approve resolution 2020-45, approval of fiscal year 20 May financial report. Any further comments? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Item P, deliberate and act on resolution 2020-46, fiscal year 20 budget adjustment number 16. Michael Ann.
Mayor and Commission, I have a budget adjustment that I've provided you a copy of right before the meeting. You'll see that the adjustments in the general fund are just line item adjustments within the various departmental funds. If we look at the special revenue funds and the capital outlay funds on the second page, we did receive an additional WHIP grant, which is a hazmat training grant from the Department of Homeland Security. So I'm creating a couple new line items to account for that funding. Also, we did approve a change order for the Schuler Theater office renovation project. So I do need to make some adjustments to that line item because I previously had only estimated the project prior to it going out to bid. So that includes the bid amount plus the change order. Also, we were approved by the Juvenile Justice Program to reclass the travel expenses to the coordinator's salary. That way that we won't revert funds at the end of the fiscal year, but most of the coordinator's travel was canceled due to the COVID-19 restrictions. So that was nice of them to allow us to do that because you don't typically want to revert funds
Right.
if you don't have to. And then also we, in the month of May, we pay the loans for the various debt service loans that we have with the New Mexico Finance Authority. So I've just got some line item adjustments there that reflect the actual payments of interest admin fees for the actual payments that were made in the month of May. Other than that, just a few more line item adjustments. Is there any questions on any of the adjustments that we're requesting this evening?
Looks pretty straightforward to me.
This probably isn't the final. We still have one more opportunity before July 31st. So we'll close out the fiscal year, do another review of all of our financials, and probably bring one more budget adjustment to the commission for final approval.
Okay. Any other questions?
Make a motion to approve 2020-46, FY 20 budget adjustment number 16.
One second.
A motion and a second to approve resolution 2020-46, budget adjustment number 16. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I guess we have to do item Q, city manager report.
Good brief, Mayor and Commission. I would report to you that construction that started on the Great Blocks project, that's the current phase 2. We would anticipate completion of that in the spring of 2021. We did start in the area of Rio Grande Avenue and South First Street, and as we had reported to you earlier, contractor HO Construction is a contractor that built phase 1, and we got along good with them and liked their work, so we're moving that project along. Roofing has been completed on the Highlands Educational Building. You see the amount of that in the bar. Discussed, we found some bad insulation panels underneath the existing roofing and replaced that, resulting in a little extra cost, but the work has been completed at this point. So we did have some interior damage due to leaking, and we have some wall damage. We'll need to fix both of those things, not included in this effort here, so we'll loop around back to those. Roofing is underway at the Aquatic Center. We are replacing the membrane roofing on the Aquatic Center, not the steel panel roofing. Following completion of the Aquatic Center, we will work on the Coors building and the City Hall building. You'll recall that that was in response to hail damage that occurred in 2016, and we are working with risk management as far as that construction. So it's been a while, but we're getting that done now. There's also some housing authority units that are included in that insurance issue. 5th Street resurfacing project is scheduled to begin on July 6th. I'll report to you on that at our next meeting. Would conclude by talking about the wildfire risk that we have right now. The fire department did put out a fire on Sunday evening in Letton Canyon. That's in the area of, that's on the NRA, very visible from town. It's in that area where the rendezvous is held. It was lightning caused. It was very high. Crews had to hike in there and do chainsaw work. Limited the fire to 0.2 acres. And then the next day, New Mexico Forestry came in and helped keep an eye on that. But a good job on the part of our fire department. At least 3 other episodes I know of, they went out looking for smoke, and we did not find those fires, and I think the fire resolved itself. But as recent as yesterday, we were out in various places looking for fires, including one in Sugar Canyon, which we're of course very concerned about. So fire danger remains high. A lot of what we're talking about here really has been lightning caused, but the fires that we've had in the past, track fire and U Park fire, were human caused. So that's really probably our biggest concern and biggest risk. So during this time that we have dangerous conditions, we would ask people to be very, very cautious on that. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Berry. Any other comments? Commissioner Chatterley? Commissioner Giacomo? Commissioner Chavez?
No, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem Schuster?
No, very good.
Very good. This meeting is adjourned.